What's up, everybody? It is Rustbeard, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Burning Crusade dungeons, and we're going to be ranking them in a tier list format, pretty much exactly like we did the classic dungeons last week. You all seem to like that quite a bit, and of course I've really loved your discussions on that one. Some comments I have not yet replied to. Some of them are very long, so bear with me. I do have a day job and everything, and a dog and a life outside of everything else on the internet, so it's been taking me a little bit of time to get back to some of those longer ones, but I'll sit down probably today or tomorrow and try to get back to those comments. Regardless, love the feedback, love talking to you guys in the comments. It's pretty fun. Honestly, it's like the main reason I like putting videos out is to talk to people about opinions on World of Warcraft and other games and content and stuff like that, so anyway, without further ado, let us begin the ranking Burning Crusade dungeons. Alright, so let us begin. Let's go ahead and start with the Auchenai Crypts. I think that the Auchenai Crypts are probably going to be... I think I'd put it in C tier. Yeah. I don't quite know why I'd put it in C tier, but I do know it's going in C tier. I don't know, I feel like that one's just not, it's not one that sits out above some of these other ones, but yeah, we'll move on. Shadow Labyrinth, I definitely would put above Auchenai Crypts, because I do remember having a lot more fun with that one than I did Auchenai Crypts. Again, I don't know why. Why is that like fuzzy in my head right now? Not the dungeon itself, but just like my overall feeling for it is just like faded for some reason. That's weird. Set the Calls, probably going to also put that one in C tier. Mana Tombs, I think I'd probably throw into B tier with Shadow Labyrinth. You know what, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Shadow Labyrinth would probably be down in C tier too. Yeah, I think so. Old Hillsbrad. I think Old Hillsbrad I would probably put up in B tier. I do think it was pretty fun, but I do know a couple of these down here are probably going to be a little bit better in my opinion. The Black Morass. I think the Black Morass is probably A tier. I think for sheer nostalgia alone, I could probably put that up there, and I'd be satisfied with that, yeah. Now overall, let's see. I think the Burning Crusades dungeons, in my opinion, I have a little bit more of a feel for than I do the classic dungeons, because as I said in my previous video, I was pretty young when I was playing classic, and it was the tail end of classic, or vanilla, sorry. It was the tail end of vanilla, and I wasn't really running dungeons like you would traditionally run dungeons. It was more so I was just begging in the streets for carries and shit because I was a child, you know, I didn't really care. But Burning Crusades came out and I was a little older. I was able to understand like how dungeons worked a little bit better, so I do have like a better understanding of the Burning Crusade dungeons, I think, than I did the classic dungeons, so I might have a little bit more of a like bias, I guess, for these, even though there are some of the classic dungeons, for example, like the Scarlet Monastery and Ragefire Chasm and Sunken Temple, the ones that I talked about before, that just like sit really heavy in the feels for me. But yeah, these are the dungeons that I actually started running a lot more, and especially once Wrath came out and I was playing a Death Knight, I like switched over to Death Knight almost immediately. Obviously, when you get taken out of the Death Knight starting zone, you get put into Hellfire Ramparts and Shattered Halls and all that kind of stuff, so I do remember running those quite a bit. The Slave Pens. The Slave Pens I'm going to put in probably D tier. don't really like the slave pens, and maybe it's just because of burnout. Maybe it's because I ran slave pens so much that I just don't. I don't know. I don't really like it all that much anymore. Maybe it's probably from burnout. Let's be honest. The Steam Vault, honestly, I'd probably have to put there as well. Now, I know last time in the classic dungeons, I know in my last video I was talking about how Maradon is very big and open, and it feels like you're running forever through these like just massive caverns and stuff like that. Now, aesthetically, it is cool. I think that it looks very pretty. It's very fun to look at. However, that was my biggest gripe, was just having to run through those big, massive, like, slopes and hills and stuff inside these caverns and shit, and it just felt like you were running forever, especially if you wiped and you had to run back from the beginning. So, that was my biggest gripe about that. Now, hear me out. The Underbog, on the other hand, I personally, and I feel like I'm going to get heat for this because I feel like a lot of people don't really like the Underbog, but I personally like the Underbog more than I like Maradon for that reason. Because it is open, it is spacious, it is big, but it feels a lot less so because of the amount of stuff that's in it. So like the foliage and the big hulking like fungus monsters and shit, and the mana rays and stuff that are just like floating around, nether rays, or rather, I don't know, it just feels a lot more exciting to wander through it than it does Maradon, in my opinion. But I don't know, give me heat if you must, but that's just what I think. Hellfire Ramparts. Hellfire Ramparts, I absolutely am putting in S tier. It's short, it's convenient, it's to the point, and I cannot even describe to you the feeling that I got when Hellreaver dropped for me the first time. I was so pumped. Man, I had that thing on all the time. Especially after Transmog was a thing. I had it transmogged forever, too. I loved that polearm so much. But yeah, Hellfire Ramparts, it's short and sweet to the point. It does provide a little bit of a challenge too if you're not familiar with it, or if you are like first going into it and you don't understand like where the trash and the patrols and stuff are going, or the first boss, for example. And I just think overall it's a pretty cool dungeon. Shattered Halls I'd probably say the same about, but I don't like it as much as Hellfire Ramparts. And Blood Furnace, in my opinion, I like just as much as Hellfire Ramparts. But with the Blood Furnace, I liked the more warlock focused aesthetic of it, and the minions and stuff that are all around and whatnot. I'm a big fan of warlocks, so anything warlock related is gonna be cool in my book. So there's that. Okay, Magister's Terrace. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really remember a lot of it. I know I've ran it, I know where it's at, and I know I've ran it, but for whatever reason, I don't remember it all that much. So for the sake of that, I'm gonna put it in never ran. I have ran it, so this could be no opinion on. How about that? We'll change that to no opinion on, because I don't think there's any dungeon that I haven't ran past BFA, probably, because I think I've ran everything before BFA. I ran all of the dungeons in BFA, but anyway, I don't know. I don't remember that dungeon very much, and I don't know why. It's just a fuzzy blip in my mind. I roughly remember the layout of it, but I don't remember it enough to have an opinion on it, let's put it that way. The Arcatraz. Alright, the Arcatraz, I think I'm gonna put in C tier. I think it's fun, but not great, but fun. I definitely like, yeah, I like Arcatraz, but I think I like these other ones more. Yeah, I think C is a good spot for it. The Mechanar, however, I'm gonna put in B, and I'm probably going to put the Botanica in A. As far as that wing of dungeons go, I think that the Botanica out of those three are probably my favorite. I'm huge on like the arcane greenhouse feel to it, you know what I mean? But gone terribly wrong with all these monsters and shit in it. I mean, I think that's fun. I like that a lot. It's a little different than the others that are in the Burning Crusade, so that's probably why I like it more than those other two. I don't know. I don't really have any like fun like personal stories that stick out for any of these, other than maybe Hellfire Ramparts. I know there's been a couple times where I've had groups of people that I've been with where they think that they are going to do Hellfire Ramparts for the first time and they're not going to have any problem with it whatsoever. I remember I usually tank. I almost always tank, but for a little while I was probably leveling some alts or something. I can't remember if I was maybe my Warlock or something, but we got this one tank for our group, and he was so confident that he was just going to start pulling big or whatever and he'd be able to take it. And dude, he would pull these massive trash pulls and just get wiped, just over the floor wiped, because he thought he could do it, and there's just no way in hell he was going to manage that. Also, it's just a dick move, because if your healer's not with it, you know, if your healer doesn't want you to pull that big to make their life a lot more difficult, then you probably just should chill out, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's really all for the Burning Crusade dungeons. I think next week, I know this is kind of a meh one, but you know, next week for Wrath of the Lich King, I have ran more Wrath of the Lich King dungeons than I have ran any other expansion other than maybe Pandaria. So, and I know for a fact I've got some stories for the Wrath of the Lich King dungeons, absolutely. So, yeah. I think this is my list though. Let me know in the comments what you think. That'll about do it for the Burning Crusade dungeons. I hope you all found this list to be intriguing, maybe upsetting. Either way, if it's evoking a reaction, that's all I care about. I want you all to comment below, of course, what your favorite Burning Crusade dungeons are, what your least favorite Burning Crusade dungeons are, and do you guys have any stories from some crazy adventures within the Burning Crusade dungeons that you would like to share? I would love to hear about them in the comments. And if you liked this video, make sure you hit the like button. That would be great. I would love that. Also, hit the subscribe button if you are not subscribed already. I very much appreciate it. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.